Internet cut off. Streets flooded with soldiers. How Uganda's election between Museveni and Bobi Wine entered a critical moment in history. As the world fixed its attention on Uganda, citizens woke up just days before the presidential election to a shocking reality. The internet had gone dark, social media platforms were silent, and security forces flooded the streets. For many Ugandans, one question dominated conversations: was this a normal election, or a battle over power, information, and the people's voice? This unfolded as Uganda prepared to elect a president, pitting longtime leader Yoweri Kaguta Museveni against opposition figure Robert Kyagulanyi, widely known as Bobi Wine. Elections under a heavy security cloud. The January 2026 elections came at a time of heightened tension across the country. Security forces were deployed heavily in Kampala and other major cities. Military trucks, armed police officers, and roadblocks became a common sight, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The government stated that these measures were necessary to maintain peace and prevent violence during the election period. Authorities argued that Uganda's stability was at stake and that strong security was required. However, opposition groups and human rights organizations viewed the situation differently. They claimed the security deployment was meant to intimidate voters and suppress dissent, undermining the freedom and fairness of the electoral process. Museveni versus Bobi Wine. Two very different paths. President Yoweri Museveni has ruled Uganda for over 4 decades. His supporters credit him with restoring stability after years of conflict and believe continuity is essential for national security and economic development. They argue that sudden change could plunge the country into chaos. On the other side stands Bobi Wine, a former popular musician turned politician, who has become the symbol of change, especially among young people. Using music, grassroots mobilization, and social media, he has called for democratic reforms, accountability, and an end to long-standing political dominance. However, his campaign has faced significant obstacles, including arrests of supporters, disruption of rallies, and alleged harassment by security forces. These challenges have raised serious questions about whether the election environment is truly fair. Why was the internet shut down? On January 13, 2026, just 2 days before voting day, the Ugandan government ordered a nationwide internet shutdown. Officials said the decision aimed to prevent the spread of misinformation and fake news, reduce the risk of incitement and unrest through social media, protect national security during a sensitive period. Critics, however, argued that the shutdown was designed to silence opposition voices. Bobi Wine and his supporters heavily relied on social media to communicate, mobilize voters, and report incidents in real time. Cutting off the internet limited transparency and restricted the public's access to information. The shutdown affected journalists, businesses, civil society groups, and millions of ordinary citizens, disrupting daily life and economic activity. How did people communicate without internet? Despite the blackout, communication did not completely stop. Ugandans turned to radio, which became the primary source of news and election updates, phone calls and SMS, which continued to function, face-to-face communication within communities, word-of-mouth networks, spreading information from person to person. These methods showed that while digital platforms can be silenced, human communication cannot be entirely shut down. International concern and global attention. International organizations, foreign governments, and global media expressed concern about the election environment in Uganda. Key issues raised included the fairness and credibility of the elections, restrictions on freedom of expression and access to information, the safety of opposition leaders, journalists, and voters. The election was widely seen as a major test for democracy in Uganda and a reflection of broader political trends across Africa. Conclusion: the Uganda election between Museveni and Bobi Wine was not merely a contest between two candidates. It represented a deeper struggle over the country's future direction. Would Uganda continue under long-standing leadership, or would it embrace a new generation calling for change? The internet was shut down, but ideas were not. Social media went silent, yet the hopes, fears, and questions of the people grew louder. Uganda entered a defining chapter in its history, and the consequences of this election are expected to resonate far beyond its borders.